We're talking about nursing, healthcare, leadership, recovery, and senior living. The show brings the best in the industry to you because it's about you. I'm Angie Graham, and we're talking about it. I'm Angie Graham, and here's the story. Let's get into it. The big, beautiful bill. What does that mean for seniors and senior care? Well, no tax on overtime. Now, we've been kind of excitedly watching this and wondering what it was going to look like. So here's the deep dive into what I found out there as far as what they're talking about with the overtime aspect of this, because that's what's really going to affect providers. So unfortunately, it doesn't really play into effect until tax time. So nothing is going to change as far as take-home pay with employees. I was really hoping we were going to see a change with this and that our workers would see some immediate additional income going home. But what it's going to be is a tax deduction at the end of the year. It will retro back until to January 1st of 2025. So when we file our taxes next year in 2026, employees will be able to deduct almost $12,500 is the exact amount, and there are some income variables that go into that. Also, if they are married, it's up to $25,000. Now, excited to see the additional cash in people's pockets. That's going to help our economy. And in our small rural areas, it's just more money for people to help battle what has been this huge deficit with the inflation that we've seen going on. So we are looking forward to our workers getting this additional money. However, those of us in the industry, we call it March Madness. March Madness is when employees, a lot of them in March, will have their tax return. What does that mean? Well, that means that employees go on a sabbatical. So this is additional money for employees to go potentially on sabbatical. Thus, doesn't really benefit us a whole lot in the industry other than we know we have to do some additional hiring. But hey, if this is how they want to use the additional income, is take some time off, some well-deserved, go travel around the world for a month and then come back to work. You know what? We've been dealing with this already for a long time. So more money for our workers is always beneficial to everyone all around in business. What it doesn't do is it doesn't give any employer tax relief. So what's happening is we're still deducting taxes out of that pay. Employers are still paying additional tax money, so there is no real benefit to employers, only to healthcare workers that are working overtime. Also benefits the nurse. So if a nurse, for example, making $80,000 salary and $15,000 of that is in overtime, they will be able to deduct that. So like I said, there is some income limits involved, so you can go out there and check that out for more information as far as benefits. So what also may benefit us is there are some cuts in this bill regarding Medicaid services, which will trickle down to individuals that are on state programs. That is incentives for people to get back out there and go to work. We are looking forward to that because with some of our employees, we do hear, oh, I can't work over a certain amount of hours. It's going to affect my benefits, which for us as employers always seems frustrating that there is an incentive to work, but rather the incentive for benefits is not to work. So hopefully the state can get wrapped around this and do a better job of incentivizing employees to go to work. For example, Badger Care. I would love it if employees could maintain their health benefits through the state, but be able to continue to work full-time hours or more hours and it not affect their Badger Care benefits. Seems to me that healthcare is something that everyone needs, and we shouldn't be penalizing people by their income limits to go to work. So legislators, can we figure this out and incentivize people to go to work instead of not working? That seems to me would benefit our employees overall. Now, we put a lot of money into healthcare services as far as incentives for finding healthcare workers. So wouldn't it be a benefit that we offered healthcare, Badger Care services to healthcare workers? Perhaps legislators, we should think about that. There is the Wisconsin Caregiver Career Program, in which Wisconsin has approved funding to go into, which will promote healthcare-related jobs. Hey, I'm on board with anything that will help. So if we're doing that, I'm all for it. How can us as employers partner with this and get out there and provide opportunities for people to enter the industry? So that's important. Wisconsin also passed their budget, and with their budget, they expanded some family care program and funding, which is great, including rate limits as far as minimums go. This is something that providers really need to have happen in the industry, and I'm happy to see this. However, some managed care organizations have already found loopholes in ways to reduce rates. So we need to really work on closing that. While they're not supposed to be lowering our rates, here we are again with managed care organizations. It's always been a struggle between providers and the managed care organizations. So who are the managed care organizations, and how does this work for providers? Well, managed care organizations is who manages the family care funding, the state funding, the taxpayer money that goes into funding individuals in assisted living, the industry that I'm in, that don't have the money or the ability to pay privately. So they go into the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and they can get approved for programs through the state that will help pay for long-term care in assisted living for seniors. That funding comes from the state through the Family Care Program, and it is managed by managed care organizations, or in the industry, we call them MCOs. MCOs are owned by insurance companies. Yes, you heard that right. MCOs are managed, taxpayer money are owned by insurance companies. So My Choice Wisconsin was acquired by Molina, who is a subsidiary of Humana, and Inclusa was acquired by iCare, also a subsidiary of Humana. So these two acquisitions happened back in 2023. So it does make you wonder, the managed care organization, managed care business can't be too bad if the insurance companies are getting in on the game. But here's the problem, is that providers that are wholly and solely provided relying on state funding, and this can be providers that are offering care for disability, for example, individuals, adult disabilities. So this may be adult family homes or group homes where individuals are providing care to those individuals that are all 100% state funded. What's happening out in the industry, or what I'm hearing about, is that they're having a really hard time finding help. The reason behind a lot of this is the reimbursement rate that is being offered. For those types of businesses where they're relying 100% on the state reimbursement, the reimbursement isn't enough to pay the going rate for caregivers. And so the struggle is real for them. They're still trying to hire people for $10, $12, $13 an hour, and they just can't do it solely alone on state funding and cover all the overhead expenses. So some challenges for those groups. And now the state is also redoing the regulations for adult family homes, which is going to compound the problem. So in other words, there's going to be more strict rules and stringent rules in place. And I think in the future, we're going to see some real struggles ahead for the adult family home industry. For those of us in assisted living, it's really important that we have a balance between private pay individuals and then state payers. This is why it's really hard as a provider to stand alone on just the state reimbursement. It's just not enough. That's the facts of where they are. Where the employees want to be paid, you cannot hardly survive on just the state reimbursement. Not when you have the MCOs in the middle and they're also taking away a profit from those taxpayer funds. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said a profit. They know they're not a nonprofit. These are owned by insurance companies, and there is a profit that's taken by the middleman before it comes to the provider. So let's keep that in mind. And as a taxpayer, I do wonder, and would you trust an insurance company with your tax dollars? I mean, let's talk about the insurance industry. I don't know how other consumers feel about it, but they don't have exactly the best squeaky clean reputation. So I think we have a lot of work to do as far as that goes. With these acquisitions with Molina and iCare, the subsidiaries of Humana, there won't be really any change as far as those individuals that are partaking in the programs. That will continue. But for providers, we have to make adjustments accordingly based on what the state reimbursements are. And in our industry, particularly, we have to limit how many individuals that we have on the state aid. Otherwise, it's just too hard to maintain a quality care standard for the individuals that we're taking care of. Also in news is Big Pharma being sued. So a lot of Big Pharma lawsuits, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, and so forth. It goes on and on and on. Kickbacks, drug pricing fraud, all kinds of things going on here. The thing with in some big settlements also, I don't necessarily think that this is a win for the consumer. When you're talking about Pfizer, $2.3 billion for false promotion, I mean, ultimately, consumers are going to pay for that in the end. You got Johnson & Johnson paying out $2.2 billion for illegal marketing of prescription drugs. Again, consumers in the end, I mean, we just ultimately end up paying the cost for those things. But this is what's happening. There is some Medicaid cuts, as I mentioned earlier, from the big, beautiful bill. Some of these cuts I think are warranted. I think we want to have people back to work in our communities. We need workers. There is no reason why able-bodied individuals cannot find a job today. We are begging for employees in all kinds of healthcare genres across the industry, from nursing homes to hospitals to senior living. So there's an abundance of jobs out there, and we definitely need workers. There is no doubt about that. Wisconsin approved the family care and family care partnership programs. With that, they also renewed the program that assists with the workforce incentive. That was really important for senior living. It's some additional funds, although the question remains how it's really dispersed. Again, that goes to the managed care organizations somehow through the state. We're all kind of not real sure how all that works, but in the end, there is an additional check that is paid to with the workforce funding. It would be good if we could have some transparency on how that is exactly funded, but maybe someone out there knows and can provide the answers, because I'd really like to know, and I know some other providers would like to know as well. But some things you just not real sure with the funding that is So what's going to be ahead of us for the rest of the year? I think all of this is good news. We've had some uncertainty as far as if the state was going to approve this budget, and we were sitting waiting to find out if the workforce incentive was going to be there. It definitely makes a difference. The workforce incentive goes directly back to the employees through benefits and the pay that we pay. So it does make a difference for providers. There has been some cuts regarding hospitals through the big, beautiful bill, some hospital funding. This is concerning with the rural hospitals. We're already suffering in rural areas with hospitals. We really need our hospitals in rural areas, as well as our nursing homes in rural areas. We have seen several nursing home closures. We used to really frown at nursing homes. They used to take all of our loved ones' money, and we didn't like nursing homes. But nursing homes have had really a financial struggle to stay alive. So nursing homes are having a financial struggle. Hospitals are having a financial struggle. And nowadays, it only seems like the insurance companies are winning. I don't know about you, but I definitely see the trend. Assisted living, well, we're trying to hold our own. In some areas where you have to be more reliant on state aid, it's a tricky game, and you have to be very careful. Otherwise, you can get yourself in financial trouble. You do have to have the balance. So provider end of things aren't as lucrative as they were in the years past. Now, the only ones that seem to be winning still are the insurance companies. And now insurance companies have their hands on your tax dollars. So again, really interesting. I'd like to learn more and talk more about that and see how that all comes together. And I'm not real sure on the regulatory requirements as far as the accountability with those tax dollars. I'd like to learn more about that. So if you can help me out with some answers, I would love to know. And as a matter of fact, we could have you on the show, then you could talk more about how the MCOs are regulated from the state and funding and how the funding works coming down to the providers. If we could get more educated on this, I would love that. I'd love to talk to someone out there that can help us with the understanding of that. Well, here we are again, wrapping up some current events and how it will affect us. And we do have some good news overall. And I think we're looking to see a good finish of 2025 as we move ahead. And to wrap it all up, and remember, it's all about you. You can find the We're Talking About It podcast on YouTube, YouTube Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.